Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Advertech Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers.
Hello again, and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Pageau, and today we're joined by Iz Shalom, the co-founder and CEO of OIlie, the AI photo assistant. But it didn't always used to be OIlie, it used to be something else. But first, let's talk up to Iz. Hi, Iz. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
So, Iz, you've got kind of an interesting background before we get into OIlie and the app and what it does and what the opportunities there are. You've kind of always been, just from reading your background, kind of been in the storage world, like the online storage space. Can you talk a little bit about kind of where you started and how you got into that?
Yeah, I mean, not always, but certainly the last 7 years or so. Before that, I was an engineer at Google, but I found my way to the Google Photos' monetization arm, if you'd call it, which is called Google One. If you end up depleting your 15 gigabytes of storage today, you will be prompted to purchase Google One. And we were the team I was lucky to be part of that team that launched it. And right now it was just announced that it has 100 million users. So we've been in that space. I know. So thank you for your business. And yeah, we saw it kind of firsthand and photos and storage related stuff. And later on, I actually went to Dropbox to lead their consumer business, which was also really interesting. I saw very much the same problems. And when you think about storage footprint for actual consumers, so like not at business scale, it winds up being photos and videos. So that's kind of been my background.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of that business case for that, because back in the day, when the internet was new and all that in the 90s, early 2000s, people are saying no one's going to pay for storage, right? No one's going to different people tried it. No one could ever make it work. They're all kind of different, locker type environments or whatever. But it seems like whether it's a cultural change or just because people just have so many pictures online, they feel they have to pay to protect them. What do you think has been driving that? Because I don't know what percentage of Google users have Google One, but it's probably a reasonable percentage to continue that service.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty reasonable portion. And if you think about it, actually with Apple and like the percentage of people who are paying for iCloud, it's even higher,
right.
Which is like very impressive if you think about it. I think two secular trends that I can point out to. One of them is simple, as just the photos and video taking has increased.
Yeah.
Ever since the mobile revolution, like you can probably see it in your camera roll, like you used to take, I don't know, a couple of hundred photos. If you're not a photo enthusiast specifically, then you're taking a few hundred photos per year. Now it's in the thousands per year. So that has just increased. The second thing is generally the idea of paying for something over the internet we've accepted that much more.
Yeah.
I remember it's now 2024. In 2004, you would be like really hard pressed to pay for anything in the internet.
Right.
I remember buying my first iPod Touch, dating myself a little bit. But I remember I was appalled by the fact that I have to plug in my credit card to set up an Apple ID. I was like, I don't give my so like the infrastructure for payments or for micropayments, etc., became much simpler. So I think everybody's much more willing to pay for a subscription period. And I think storage, like with anything else, is enjoying from that trend.
Because I think in a lot of ways, people can't really cope with their content, right? They create so much of it, and they don't really, they don't really want to delete a lot of pictures and everything. And that's kind of is going to roll into our OIlie discussion, obviously. But it does kind of address a need that I think people have where, it used to be, storage used to be an inhibitor, right? It used to be expensive, right? Buying a hard drive was a big deal. And people were buying all kinds of, removable media to store their pictures on. And there used to be like full album-like devices people would store. It was weird too. It was a weird era back in the 2000s where you'd have like a photo album kind of thing, but it was just filled with, SD cards or whatever. people would store their pictures. And it was really weird. And then it migrated online, right? And you had some of the photo services doing that, right? You had clearly, Shutterfly, that was their game for a long time, was, hey, just upload everything and, eventually you'll want to print it. And I think that kind of deteriorated as the volume got to be very expensive and people weren't printing as much. And then you have kind of the storage people getting into that with the, Amazon, obviously, Google doing that, Dropbox doing that. Actually, Dropbox used to have, Carousel and some great products for that. But it was interesting to me that never really, it was more the storage people becoming the keepers of memories, not the photo people. Why do you think that is?
Storage is really expensive. And if you don't do it, it actually becomes a problem, a technological problem of how to maintain those data centers in a way that is cost efficient.
Right.
I can't get into the numbers, but
Sure.
when we were at Google One, we were acutely aware of how much it costs us to store a gigabyte, like in a really replicated in a way that it's not going to be lost.
Right.
And we were like really, really good at assessing that and making sure that we have a profitable business. And that comes only with scale. And Google and Apple and Dropbox are companies that are fortunate to have the scale to merit like a really deep architecture and thinking about it like really, really deeply. So I think that's kind of what's changing.
And on the other part that's interesting is, all of those people have kind of made photography piece almost the centerpiece of it, right? It used to be you'd only get certain editing features in your app, your Google Photos app, if you subscribe to Photo One or Google One. I think they've changed that policy, but that was sort of one of the incentives was, hey, you get the magic AI, the blurring, the portrait mode, and all the other fun stuff. And the other people have responded too. Moving away from the past and going into the present and hopefully the future. Tell us a little bit about OIlie, which used to be called Good Ones. So how did you make the jump from being in a two huge companies, right? Dropbox and Google, to doing your own business?
Yeah, well, that story starts actually like way back when I was just launching Google One, and my daughter was turning 1, and I was faced with the orangutan task of making a photo book for her first year.
Right.
And I took just about 1 billion photos and videos of her.
Right.
Like I back then, like we used to have this like little graph of how many photos you took per year. And so like you can see kind of like this like almost invisible graph at the bottom. Pre my daughter's days, like it's like on a handful of photos, a couple of thousand growing slowly. And all of a sudden, like when my daughter is born, take a bunch of photos. And then I looked at the past. It took me like I don't even finish it. It took me like hours and hours, and I gave up essentially. And I realized like for all of this abundance of storage, I was really doing less. I was revisiting my camera roll much less often because it was such a cluttered space.
Yeah. And there's all the other stuff in there. There's receipts. There's
exactly
all the other stuff. Yeah. So, it's interesting you mentioned kind of the photo book dilemma, because that's like the trick that the industry has been struggling to solve for 20 years, right? That was almost this is going to be the golden product that's going to save the industry, because who doesn't want a photo book, right? And then back when I was at the Photo Marketing Association back in the day, we did all this consumer research, and it really came down to, I think the number was as high as 75% of photo books that are started are never finished. And the number one reason, we asked consumers, what was the reason why? It was always this: I don't have the photos I want, right? Or I don't, they're all in different places, there are different services and all that other stuff. How did you decide that make a camera roll centric app as opposed to one that pulled from 17 different services?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Photo retailers, energize your sales with ShareMe Chat, the proven texting platform. Using chat to text on your website keeps your customers connected and buying. See us at Pro and IPI to find out why dealers using ShareMe Chat close more sales without adding staff. Find out more at shareme.chat.
Honestly, just talking to a bunch of people. I just talked to people just started talking to primarily parents, to be honest. And I
Mhm.
said, okay, like, do you own a DSLR? Because we own a DSLR.
Mhm.
You know where it is? You can find it any weekend in my drawer.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
and the DSLR doesn't really go out. And I think like people, especially with as the technology has progressed and you can have things like a nice like portrait bokeh effect and things of that nature,
Mhm.
I think the quality of a photo that a layperson can take on an iPhone or or an Android or a high-end Android like a Google Pixel has shot up dramatically.
Oh, sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
and then sort of the percentage of photos like that are in the camera roll, it became like close to 100%,
Right.
save for sort of like really like semi-professional, like the Shutterbugs who are gonna do DSLR, and then they're gonna go to Adobe Lightroom anyway.
Right.
So for the layperson who's not like who doesn't have time to manage it like in a really high-end production way, which by the way, initially when I was conceiving of this idea, I was thinking about a desktop product.
Right.
And when I talked to people pretty quickly, they're like, oh, I would not open a desktop product for this. It has to be simple, has to be
Mhm.
kind of I should be able to do it on the elevator
Right.
was the remark that
So
took
it's
it
all
to
local, right? You're using all the local information, right?
exactly.
So I like your approach to marketing research, right? Just asking people, right? Asking for that because it does seem that works. So how did the company actually start? I mean, you were, in a big company and you decided to take the plunge. What was that
Yeah.
process about like? Because I mean, theoretically, you could have like probably pushed, suggested it to a company that you worked for and said, "Hey, this is a product we might do."
Yeah, it's so yeah, I would say that we did see the need for something that helps managing the storage footprint
Mhm.
quite a while, both at Google and at Dropbox, and that was sort of the second component of what made me think that oh, we need a product like this. At that time, it did not occur to me that I would start a startup around this. As you remember, I had my 1 year old, and I was
Yeah.
quite
Yeah, I was
busy,
gonna
quite
say it's a
busy
little risky at that point, right?
quite busy with my 1 year old. So it took me like 6 years or so past that moment, five or 6 years past that moment to actually go ahead and do it.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I think it was a germ of an idea at that point, or something. There is a gap, but you can think about sort of just naturally what the set of incentives are.
Mhm.
We are making money when people are storing more.
Mhm.
So to go and build a product that is going to help people store less is not the most natural thing that a company might want to
Right.
do.
That's true because you want to people upgrade once they fill out that storage, you want them to upgrade it, right? I mean to the next tier because there are at least what 3 or 4 tiers on the Google One platform and Dropbox has their tiers and all that. That's interesting.
And that's not to say that we were not going to offer tools like that, and we wanted to, and we did, and
Oh, sure.
Google Photos team still does. Like you can archive photos, can delete you can do all these things. It's just sort of what ends up being your bread and butter and how aggressively you pursue it. And I
Mhm.
think just sort of the organizations that were part of, like they put some amount of emphasis, but perhaps not all the way to what a consumer might want.
So you've got a co-founder. So tell me about how you met her and kind of how that created the business.
Yeah, so I met Aparna back in 2021.
Hmm.
She was just through an actually I had somebody who was wanting to invest at that point,
Hmm.
and I already was talking about the idea, and I was like, well, I kind of want to do it with somebody. I don't want to do it alone.
Hmm.
And she's like, oh, well, you should meet a partner. She just sold her business that was also marketing to young families,
Yeah.
and we kind of met very quickly, like within a month. We're like, okay, we want to start a business together.
Hmm.
And we were like, okay, well, let's give it a trial period. Let's not be sort of hasty about this. We did that, and yeah, and then kind of early 2022, we sort of officially started it.
So how does the experience that she brings in, having a background with, family orientated startups and media, how did that help get the company on foot?
Yeah, I think she had a lot of insights into the psyche of that demographic.
Right.
She also had a lot of experience thinking about like she thought her initial product was going to do one thing
Hmm.
and it or serve one demographic, and it wound up serving a very different demographic.
Sure. Yeah.
And so she was kind of a bit more adept of these like vicissitudes and like the roller coaster that is a startup life, that things are not as you expect, compared to working in the big tech where we have a pretty good about idea about what our customers want, and it's all about like really solid execution.
Mhm.
So she really was both in terms of kind of what are the concrete steps you do,
Right.
as well as how you manage your psychology around it, honestly, where like, oh, things are not as you thought.
Because you may need to pivot, as
Right.
you did actually do when you started with Good Ones and changed to Ollie. So first, tell me about Good Ones, how you kind of thought that was the brand you were going for.
Yeah, so like there wasn't a whole lot of thought to go into naming it.
Mhm.
I was like, I had an idea at some point. I needed a name for the idea, just like, so I honestly like, oh, that little project about like something related to photos organization. I needed just like a short word as a shorthand. And people were always like telling me whenever we were in a situation, they're like, "Oh, don't send me all the photos. Just send me the good ones. Just send me the good
Right.
ones. Just send me the good ones." Like, I'm like, "Oh, that's a good name, like good ones."
Yeah.
And the idea, and it's still to date, it's in our DNA, is not so much about decluttering and sort of emptying out your camera roll
Mhm.
and saving on storage, though that is like a helpful byproduct, but it's actually sort of to upgrade those good ones, so you have a sort of a source of truth of what are your best photos, what are your top like 100, 200, 300,
Sure.
500 photos that graced your camera roll, that you can later look in a slideshow, in a printed photo book, or in any type of artifact.
Mhm.
So that's kind of that was the idea behind Good Ones, and we wanted you to empower you to find the good ones in your camera roll, and to to elevate them in a certain way.
But now you changed the name to Ollie, which was sort of the technology platform. What was that? Was that a business decision?
Yeah.
Was that a marketing decision? Was that, people weren't responding to good ones, so you got to find something more cutesy, or what was the
Um,
what was the thought process there?
So first of all, Ollie is the name of the octopus,
Yes.
which like kind of like Duo and Duolingo. You,
Mhm.
you might have seen their commercials in
Mhm.
the Super Bowl, and we wanted the mascot, and we were like, and at that time, the movie My Teacher Octopus was all the rage. If you remember on Netflix, if you
Mhm.
haven't watched it, really recommend it. It's an excellent about life. But like a sort of octopuses were having a moment,
Ah,
and we wanted to sort of represent the intelligence and sort of the multitask capabilities of the app, because it's
right.
like juggling a lot of photos, because it has eight tentacles,
Sure.
and I was Ollie, and then like the one reliable thing that everybody loved about our app. So we went to the App Store early 2023, and for like after 6 months when we looked, the one thing that reliably everybody loved is like the octopus. Is like, oh, the octopus is so cute, Ollie's so cute, Ollie's so cute. And then the other thing that we heard from our users was, hey, I don't want uh, like I want Ollie to do the work for me, as opposed to me doing the work for Ollie, like me spending time sorting. So they wanted AI a lot more to the forefront.
Hmm.
And that kind of brings me to um, how the landscape changed between, I would say, early 2022 or like late 2021, which is kind of when we did our initial market research,
Right.
to sort of summer of 2023, which is when we did the rebrand. Uh, at the beginning, people were very, very hesitant about AI doing anything on their photo. Like, they're like way too precious about it. And I think what happened is both the technology has advanced quite a bit, but also more importantly, the zeitgeist has like with ChatGPT and everything, the zeitgeist has become much more not just accepting of AI to assist them with day-to-day problems, but expecting AI to deal with their day-to-day problems.
Right. Because for a lot
So
of reasons, and I've had different AI experts on the podcast who talked about different things. And, from a technology standpoint, people have been interacting with AI for years. They just may not have realized it, right? and when you're dealing with some of the chat bots, or if you're calling a phone line and you could be talking to an AI, and there's all kinds of AI assist that happens behind the scenes, and most people weren't even aware it was AI. And now, but like you said, it's become to the forefront, and people now can actually go and play with it and kind of see the usefulness of it. I mean, you may not really be thrilled with the results that a chat GPT or a Mid-Journey gives you, but at least you played with it. You kind of see what it can do and whatever. So the barrier, the inhibitors to accepting what an AI can do for you, I think, is lowered. So I think you're exactly right.
Yeah. I mean, like definitely it's in the last, like, I think sort of the technological breakthroughs that have allowed us Chat GPT and Mid-Journey, like, the sort of LLMs and specifically GPT and the diffusion models, where like late 2010s, early 2020s, like kind of like were available, and the people who were in the know were already like, oh my God, this is a huge breakthroughs are coming. And then I think like October 2022 was or November 2022 when ChatGPT came. That was a killer product that sort of opened everybody's mind to it, and then kind of the rest is history.
But it had built up to that point. That's the thing, isn't
Yep.
it? And I think
Yep.
what's interesting is that, now, I mean, back then, if you had AI, you trumpeted, hey, we've got AI. Now it's sort of a given.
Yep.
Right? People are expecting everything to have AI. I mean, now, Meta is now yelling at me that I got to have Meta AI on my phone and yada, yada, yada. And it's just kind of a given thing. So given that you've got AI building, can you kind of talk about that a little bit? I don't want to like divulge any secrets about how your thing works, but what are some of the parameters in terms of what it will do for the user that's now at the forefront, right? Now that Ollie is, got his tentacles into everything, if you will.
Yeah, I can tell you like actually the interaction model that we're thinking about. Very initially, the way we conceive this is the user, like you would go through all your photos. Essentially, like you would go through like batch by batch, like bit by bit, just go through, like, hey, this is good, this is bad, this is going to be the trash, etc. That's what we started from. And we said like, oh, well, we'll throw some initial filters in there to make it a little easier for you. So you can think about sort of the tandem of the user and the AI, like, and how do they work together as a team, which I think is just generally generally the paradigm to think about.
Right.
So
So
it
the
was
user is more or less training the AI, if you will.
so that's what we shifted towards. So initially, like the user was fully in the driver's seat doing most of the work, and the AI was kind of like a little bit of assistance. It was given a little bit of assistance. We've shifted over time to like initially like literally one by one the user had to process everything. Now what we're doing is the AI is actually giving you like recommendations for what to do for every single photo,
Right.
and you can press accept or you can change, right, and that will train the AI model for you specifically. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a good way to replicate like what's your desires. And a really good mental model that I found is that imagine if you had a person who was like helping you out with photos and videos, and you kind of tell them like, you might tell them, hey, try to pick one where I look good. That's what most people want to pick the photo. Like
Yeah.
if you pick eight of the photos, I look good. Or you know what? Whenever I take like 10 photos, I want a favorite one and keep like 3 or 4 that are good, and then the rest of them you can delete. So you sort of give those parameters and train, and that's what you're doing with Ollie. And we're like, and we've moved more and more from this more manual mode to this more automatic mode. And there are still a couple of breakthroughs that we need to do to make it fully working for the user. But the dream is that you would open the camera roll and you would find it exactly organized to your tastes, and any change you would do would in turn create like ripple down. Like, oh, I get it. Gary likes to keep like 5 of the same photo, so
Right.
it will learn over time kind of your preferences.
When the user, and I encourage everyone to go to, Ollie and download the app, but it's a separate app from the camera roll, but interacts directly with the camera roll data, correct? So it's almost like a view of the camera roll through Ollie's AI.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Does not create a new source of truth, which very early on in our market research we realized that's not what people want. People don't want another place to drop their photos. So we work fully with iCloud, with Google Photos directly. So it's an organization layer on top of whatever you're already using.
Mhm. And you actually have a monetization model, which is a refreshing thing because a lot of these things, I'm not sure what the model is, like throw your ads at you or something. You don't do ads. So talk a little bit about, was that from, in the intent from the beginning that you're going to have a subscription model, or what was your thought process there?
Yeah, I mean, there is essentially two ways to I guess three ways to monitor a consumer product: ads, subscriptions, and number three, like marketplace transaction fees. If there's some selling that is going on, you could see all three of
And
them
number
apply.
4, sell prints.
So that would be three, right? Like if I'm like
I know.
contracting,
I'm just throwing some out to my printing friends out there. You can always.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's the theory part, which we also thought about, or we also thought about like actually like one thing we're still thinking about is creating a subscription which includes prints.
Right.
So right now we're charging like, I don't know, like $4 a month, something like that. When you pay annually, like $3.50 a month when you pay annually. But what we've discovered is people willingness to pay shoots way up if you include a printed product as part of your
You mean almost like a monthly book or something?
a monthly subscription, like
Oh,
kind of
nice.
reminds you
So
of
you're
like
going up
chat
against
books.
the chat book folks and a few other.
I mean, we're not. This is not our focus right now. It's
I know.
something for way in the future we're thinking, and it could be like we have not.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying. I mean, that's interesting. That's because you've got some smarts on the back end to help determine that.
It could even be like you could envision it being a partnership with somebody
Sure.
like Chat
Yeah, no,
or,
exactly.
or anyone else
Yeah.
because like actually their sort of capabilities, which is a very heavy operational burden. We're a software company ourselves.
Right.
We're fully on the software side. And we knew that ads had no place in the product.
Yeah.
That we knew that like
You could never
we're
make
trying to
enough money off ads to avoid pissing
Yeah.
off your consumers.
Exactly. Also the joy, I don't know, like we were just like the joy that photos bring like should not be tainted with the ads.
Are you sure you once worked at Google? I'm just joking.
So I worked at Google One. That was the subscription product of Google,
and there was no ads there. Actually,
there were no ads.
They don't put ads in Google Photos, which is pretty nice.
Exactly, and we really did believe in it that like we can create a great consumer product that is worth paying for, and it gets better over time, and that's what we still believe in. Like exactly like you mentioned, it's refreshing because you put at the end of the day. Once you put monetization in there, it really tells you, do people actually want this? Are they willing to pay for it? Or are we like, so that we wanted very quickly, we wanted to get to a point where we have some monetization model. And I'm glad we did because it sort of reaffirmed a lot of our beliefs that this is a big problem, that consumers are willing to pay for it. And yeah, we're really glad that we did it.
So what are the tiers people can participate in?
Yeah, so right now, the free product, people can use and can like the only difference between the free product and the paid product at this juncture is it essentially does not the free product bumps you like gives you a prompt to buy the paid product. So you remove the prompt. So that was just very initially just kind of like reaffirmed that there is something to pay for.
Yeah.
And that already saw like I can't again discuss the numbers, but really, really good results. So people were finding enough value to say, hey, I'm willing to pay for this. It's a good product. It's worth it for me. And they were doing it. And over time, you can imagine it will differentiate the free tier and the paid tier.
Sure. And you've actually had some success with some investment in the last few months. Can you talk a little bit about bringing on investors and what has that done for the company?
Yeah, I mean, we were venture funded, really fantastic. We're really lucky to be working with phenomenal investors, backing some successful unicorns and some consumer companies and some AI companies. And that's been tremendously valuable because it allows us to shoot really, really far, to take really big swings because we're not, though we do want to monetize, it allows us to do it in a way that is thoughtful and not sort of kind of with our backs against the walls. So it allows us to give to take
Sure.
big swings that would like great growth potential, even if it means that they're going to pay off later. And you can imagine like a lot of this AI research is not yielding fruit immediately. So it actually gives us the
It's a
space and the breath to do all of that.
I've had a friend of mine who's got an AI photo app say it's a relentless appetite. Is AI. It is relentless in its
It
demands.
does. It does have a lot of demands, both on the personnel side and also on the compute side. So we're lucky to have that backing, and of course not just monetarily, but also their advice and their
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to get to. That's why I kind of
yeah.
brought up is that, I mean, you've got some experienced people from the list I saw of investors, and they have had some past successes and that's, that is a role that taking on a good venture capital partner can be, is they can coach you. They want to mentor.
Yep.
They don't just want to, give you money and hope you,
Yeah,
think or
they
swim.
want you to also return the money with a great multiple.
Exactly.
So I mean, it's been great to have their support. They have like there is a lot of things. So just kind of my general advice to founders is investors can give you very great generic company running advice,
Mhm.
like what they and it's great to count on them on that,
Mhm.
but for your specific problem space, you want to like what great advice is going to come to like how to fundraise, how to do hiring, how to do operational things. If you want to look at like how to build a great photo product, what are some photo needs for people, like things that have to do with your own problem space, you should stay on your own,
Right.
and not take like, I don't know, feature advice from your investors. But they're also there to like, oh, like this is a thing that is happening in the company and it seems like the end of the world to you, but guess what? I've seen 3 others in the last 12 months that the exact same thing happened. It's very normal.
Yeah.
And kind of coach you through that. So that's been really, really awesome to have.
Because that is one of the things that I don't know if people understand about, being a founder or a startup person. Yes, you have your team, but in a lot of ways it can be very isolating, right? Because you're focusing on your product. And to get some advice who's maybe they've got other people they're advising and they can say, hey, this person's running into this issue. Maybe you should talk to them. And that network interaction is super important.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not necessarily about the product itself. It's
Right.
just the type of challenges that you're going through.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know, a year and so ago, SVB went under and it's Silicon Valley Bank. I don't know if
Yep.
you remember that, but like we had a good amount of our money parked there. So like everybody's scrambling and it's really good to have a couple of people to talk to, like what are other people doing. So it's tremendously helpful.
So where can people go for information about Ollie and to, get the app and play with it and hopefully subscribe and also, maybe reach out to you and if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, the app is getollie.ai, and the Ollie is spelled as OLLIE, like short for Oliver, I guess. We never called him Oliver, but he is, I guess, Oliver. So getollie.ai, and you will see kind of our product there. And you have a link to download it. It's only on iPhone. It's not on Android yet. So that's the first thing. And then I'd love everybody to connect with me on LinkedIn. So Israel or Iz Shalom. And I'm also planning to be at Visual First, like last year. So it was a great program. So I'm looking forward to meeting everybody there. So just connect with me there. And if you just need to shoot me an email, it's iz at getollie.ai.
Great. Well, great. It is great to see you again. Looking forward to seeing you in October at Visual First.
Thank you for the time, Gary.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.